Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another exciting chapter of Cliffhangers, the serial talk show, sponsored by Pop Ninja and Louisiana Film and Video Art. I'm your host, Patrick Bennett, and tonight we have a special guest, a co-host, DDK, Discount Dark Knight. What you doing, DDK?
I am trying to recover from watching all these serials. I've been doing some homework lately. Yeah, Kendall was supposed to be here. He might pop in later. But I don't know where Kendall is right now. So you've got the Discount Dark Knight. He asked me if I could fill in for him.
So who exactly is the Discount Dark Knight? I mean, what are you?
What am I? Well, really the question is, what am I not? I'm awesome, obviously, because I've got these sweet ears here. No, I'm a member of the Just Us League. We spell our justice Justus, Just Us, mainly so that we don't get sued by DC Comics. But we are not the hero you deserve. We're the heroes you can afford. And I guess I'm a founder of the Just Us League. I was kind of thrown into it, but I've been around a lot longer than the rest of those other guys. And they just kind of took the reins and made me a part of their group. And here I am, the Discount Dark Knight. I'm with Ken's Alternate Universe. Every now and then you'll see Ken post things over on his blog, kenfontno.wordpress.com. Easiest way to find me, though, is to go to Ken's Alternate Universe on Facebook. And be sure to like the page, share the page with your friends, tell them how awesome it is. But, yeah, that's it. DDK goes around to conventions when conventions are going on, and he spreads love, joy, and justice.
Well, awesome. Well, I'm glad you joined us tonight, DDK.
Oh, no problem. I appreciate it.
We're going to talk about the Batman serials by Columbia Pictures, all right?
Sure.
You know anything about the Batman serials?
Yes, I know a few things about them.
Well, let's start with the character Batman.
Okay.
What year was he created?
Oh, gosh. Batman was the actual character Batman?
Yeah.
He was, what, 1939?
Right, correct. Yeah, by writer Bill Finger and artist Bob Kane.
Yep.
And the first time he appeared was in Detective Comics number 27.
Right, and it's that iconic cover of him on the cable holding that guy swinging.
Right.
And also used guns back then, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
And then his trusty sidekick Robin came along in 1940, about, was it 11 or 12 issues later or something, in Detective Comics number 38.
Yep.
So. And
I don't know if I'm right on this, but wasn't he the first sidekick or one of the first sidekicks?
I don't know about that, but possibly could be. So, all right. So we're going to be talking about the Columbia Pictures serial. So, just a couple of years later, after the creation of Batman in Detective Comics, Columbia Pictures decided to do a cliffhanger serial with the character Batman. And it included the character Robin in there. And it was just simply called Batman. And so it came out in 1943, and it was 15 chapters. So what'd you think about it?
Well, I enjoyed it. I really liked it. It's definitely a dated serial. It was obviously a propaganda piece, too.
Right.
As far as the Japanese villain and Dr. Daka, the Japanese villain, who wasn't played by a Japanese man.
Right.
And,
a lot of films back then were like that.
Yeah, and if you watch just the first episode, The Electrical Brain, the first chapter, then in the opening, the narrator says, Batman, he's talking about Batman and Robin. It says they represent American youth who love their country, and the whole serial goes along those lines about being patriotic and doing things for your country.
Right.
But actually, Dr. Daka was a cool villain. I thought he was a neat villain. I'd love to see him come back in the comic books. He's never been in a comic, to the best of my knowledge, and he's definitely never been on television. And I would love to see him come back. He was a villain who was championing the cause of Hirohito, and I liked him. I liked the radium gun. that he was trying to use.
Yeah, very cool. It looked good on screen too.
Yeah, it did. And I thought Lewis Wilson and Douglas Croft did great jobs as Batman.
Right, let's talk about the actors. So Lewis Wilson played Batman. So he had that the first ever live action Batman on the screen. He got that credit. So and then Douglas Croft is Robin. What'd you think about the costumes?
I liked the costumes.
Yeah. The only thing about Batman, I mean, they look cool for the retro aspect of it, but he had horns instead of ears. You know, what do you think about that?
Well, yeah, but in the second serial, the one that came out in '49, Batman and Robin,
right?
That's the one with the horns.
I mean, this one had horns too. It's just the next one. We'll talk about the next one in a while, but they kind of went out further like this. But yeah, to me, Lewis Wilson had more horns. That they went up straighter, but
yeah,
I don't know if they just couldn't make ears back then. the lady sewing them or whoever was sewing them.
And I thought Douglas Croft did a real good job as Robin, you know, showing how he was young and full of get up and go, I guess you could say. And you know, you believe that he was a kid. You believe that he was a young kid who was a sidekick of this crime fighter.
Yeah. Imagine, okay, 1943. Say you're a little kid and you're going to movies, watching serials and stuff, and you see the ad. You've been reading the Batman comic books for a couple of years, and you see the trailer. You know, coming soon, Batman, a 15-chapter serial from Columbia Pictures. Imagine how excited you would have been, man.
Yeah.
I am Dr. Decker, humble servant of His Majesty Hirohito. By divine destiny, my country shall destroy the democratic forces of evil in the United States to make way for the new order. And the page, step up to him. Slap his face. Step back.
Are you devil?
Man, that would have blew my mind back then.
For me, I mean, of course, Batman for me will always be Michael Keaton's Batman, the 1989 Batman. And I'll never forget seeing that poster in the movie theater. It was all it was, which for those of you who are watching who weren't around in '89, the poster was simply the bat signal or the logo on his chest.
Right.
On a black background, and that's all it was. It did. I don't even think it said Batman.
They cut the ends off of it too. It was like a partial logo.
Yeah, and I saw that, and I would assume that a kid that loved Batman back in the '30s, when he saw, you know, that was coming, I'm sure I had the same reaction whenever I saw that Batman poster for '89. I mean, I was excited. I wanted to see, you know, how great it would be. In all honesty, I didn't care if it was going to be a bad movie. It was just because Batman, the only Batman that I knew was the Super Friends,
right,
and Adam West's Batman.
Right. But see, at least we had the Adam West one. We were already introduced to the character back then. Right. They just had the comics. This is the first time their hero was on the screen, you know?
Yeah.
And let me show you something. Show you on my phone. I'll put a graphic up when I edit, but the theaters, before the serial came out, passed out these cardboard masks. And, you know, it had the rubber band to put it on your face. But imagine a kid getting this mask at the theater and then seeing that trailer. Man, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this says Mask of Batman. See the Columbia chapter play, Batman. Man, you imagine getting that and going home and pinning a towel to your, for a cape, running around the yard with your friends and, playing Batman.
Play Batman, yeah.
And just building up that anticipation of that cereal coming out. And then I imagine some of the kids even wore them when the cereal came out, each week at the theater.
Absolutely.
I would have. I'd still wear them today if they had cardboard masks.
Yeah.
But,
well, I mean, look at me.
I can't imagine that excitement. I can remember watching the reruns of the Adam West show when I was a kid on TV. And my brother and I would go out after we'd watch it, and we'd put capes on, towels on, and we'd play Batman and Robin. I always had to be Robin because I was a younger brother. But but anyway, had a lot of fun. So I imagine these kids did the same thing.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, those stories. I mean, it was your heroes come to life. So you had to be a little bit excited about it if you love that stuff, and to see them on a big screen makes it even more impressive. It's one thing to see a TV series nowadays, watch something on TV, but to see it on the big screen, at the silver screen at the theater, it still gets me, and I'm knocking on 50, and to go see a movie like when the Shazam film came out. I mean, I was just glad to see him on the screen. It was a good movie, but
it was a lot of fun.
I was just to see the gigantic lightning bolt across his chest on a massive screen. That just it made the character come back to life for me because Shazam. I've always loved Captain Marvel or Shazam, whatever you want to call him, and all I ever knew of him was the comic books and the TV series from the 70s. And I had never seen him on the big screen, even though they had the Adventures of Captain Marvel serial. I never saw it on a big screen before. And to see Shazam finally on a big screen, that was the thing.
Exciting stuff.
I love that.
So I noticed on the Batman serial, the chapters had a narrator. And it reminded me much of what they did with the Adam West series. How the narrator, Batman and Robin are trapped. What's going to happen with so-and-so? They had that narrator. So you think that inspired the Adam West producers to make that narrator just like that? It sounded pretty much the same.
Yeah, It was almost exactly the same because they would have the cliffhanger ending in the serial, and then on the series, Batman
always the 2 parts.
Yeah, and it ended the exact same way with that narrator. Def probably did inspire it.
I know the costumes. They look pretty good, man. And I love that retro style.
Yeah.
But the Bat Cave, man, that was pretty sad. I think they could have done a much better job because it was the size of my living room, and it was just a desk there, and
a desk with
like bats the size of pillows flying around, big giant bats.
Yeah, and they called it the Bat's Cave.
Yeah, the Bat's Cave. Was it like that in the early comics? It must have been.
Well, this predated the comics. The Bat's Cave was introduced in that serial. That's the first time they ever make any kind of mention of a Bat Cave at all.
Cool.
And the comics took that and ran with it.
But I think they should have made a much larger cave.
Yeah, and I guess
quarters. It's like being in my house in the living room.
I guess maybe budget constraints.
Maybe so.
I don't know, but it's kind of sad to think that Batman just sits at a desk waiting for crime to happen.
Yeah, I liked how whenever Batman and Robin would capture the criminals, he put a bat on their forehead.
Yeah.
What was that, like a stamp or what? Something stuck on there?
I don't know what the deal was with that.
Yeah, but I know he would handcuff them and put that bat and leave them for the police to find. I thought that was pretty funny. It reminded me of the Phantom, how he punched people with that ring and leave the imprint. Yeah. But he'd leave a bat on their forehead.
And Alfred. In that serial, Alfred, he's kind of a bumbling idiot. It wouldn't be until later that we'd learn his real backstory, but that character, the Bat's Cave was introduced in that serial, And then prior to that serial, Alfred was always drawn as kind of a chunky guy. He was never this slim, tall British guy. Which, I mean, he was a British guy, but he was chunky, this little fat guy. And when the serial was released, that was another thing that DC ran with. They're like, hey, you know, this looks good. So Alfred became the skinny guy that we know today. He's a lot more intelligent than he used to be.
Yeah,
they portrayed him kind of as just an idiot, right. And you wouldn't. It's kind of hard to believe that Batman wouldn't trust his identity to a guy who gets frazzled so easily, because Alfred was easily manipulated and threatened in that serial.
Now in this serial, there was really no Batmobile. They just drove a regular, I think it was a 39 Cadillac convertible.
Yep.
And they didn't refer to it as the Batmobile, did they? Yep.
No, he just called it the car. He
so that came later in the comics, or when did the Batmobile? When did that come out?
I don't know. I don't know when the Batmobile arrived.
Well, what do you drive, DDK?
I drive a Prius.
So you got a DDK Prius?
Yes, it's a DDK Prius. It's all black because it has to be black, and with yellow hubcaps. I don't have rims. I just have hubcaps.
Right. Well, you have a cave?
No, I don't have a cave. I have a corner of the bedroom.
In the bathroom waiting for crime?
Yeah. I sit in the bathroom waiting for crime to happen.
Nice. Well, the 39 Cadillac, wasn't it like when Bruce Wayne was in it, they had the top down? But when they used it for Batman, they put the top up.
They would put the top up, and they would change in the Cadillac.
Yeah, in the back seat, yeah.
They would show them taking their shirts off and stuff and getting into the costumes like nobody would notice two guys changing clothes in the back of a caddy. But,
I liked the bad guys in their car. They had a unique way of disguising their car.
Oh, yeah, the gas that would change the color?
Was it gas? I thought it was just like canisters of spray paint was spraying their car.
Well, I want to say
gas.
I think it was in the second chapter.
Okay, they explain it.
They're chasing them, and
they go through that tunnel.
Right, and he says release the gas or something like that.
Okay.
And you see the color change to that.
Yeah, it changes the color. Then they rotate the license plate.
They flip the plate.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I like that.
That was neat, but it's never used. I don't think again in the serial. They show it that one time, and that's it. And to me, I mean, that's a cool thing. They could have ran with.
Was there a certain chapter that just stood out to you in this serial?
Not really. I enjoyed all of them equally. What I liked about it was seeing all the little things, like the Bat's Cave. Yeah. And I guess I don't remember what the exact chapter was, the chapter number, but it was the one where Dr. Daka opens up his pit and he's feeding his alligators. And he's about to offer up one of his zombies, and somebody interrupts him. It's the guy who's fed up. I can't remember his name, but the guy who's fed up with Daka and he's going to give up on everything.
Yeah. And
he pulls a gun on Daka, and they start to back out, and the alligator pit opens, and he falls into the pit. You hear him scream. You see the gators. I guess that would probably be one that would stand out to me. But
definitely, it
was just little sequences like that. I enjoyed those. I like the one where the two soldiers go in to the fun house, or it was a house of horrors, but it was a Japanese house of horrors.
Yeah.
And the guy clubs him on the head, and he brings him into Daka.
I thought it was a pretty good serial. I mean, if I was a 8 or 9 year old boy, I would have ate that up, man. I would have been in heaven watching that serial.
The director, Lambert Hillier, he also directed Dracula's Daughter, which was the first sequel to 1931's Dracula with Bela Lugosi. He directed Dracula's Daughter, and I would love to do a show on Dracula's Daughter because there's so much weird stuff going on in that movie. It's a good film, but it is completely opposite of the Batman serials that Hillier directed, and I think that kind of shows how much a range he had as far as a director, because Dracula's Daughter goes in an entirely different direction, and it's a good movie. I don't want to say too much about it, because we're not supposed to talk. We're not talking about that. We're talking about Batman. But yeah, if you want to see more of Hillier's work, I recommend Dracula's Daughter.
All right. Well, man, let's move on to the next Columbia Batman serial, and this was almost a decade later. It came out in 1949, and this time it was called Batman and Robin. And I can't remember how many chapters did the Batman and Robin one have.
It was 15 as well.
It was also 15. I couldn't remember.
It was 15, and they fought the Wizard.
Now this had a whole new cast. It was Robert Lowry played Batman now, and then Johnny Duncan played Robin. And Lyle Talbot was Commissioner Gordon. So Commissioner Gordon made an appearance now.
Yeah, that was his first appearance.
Live action. And
Vicky Vale's in it.
Vicky Vale was on there. That was Jane Addams. Okay. Well, the big differences in this, as far as like the costumes go, Batman had a much larger bat image that covered most of his chest. Where in the original serial, it was real small,
Yeah, and it looked like his grandmother embroidered it for him.
Most of those costumes back then, like Robin's R, it looked like somebody just, made it.
Yeah. And he had those pronounced horns.
Right. Batman's horns.
It was almost like
they kind of went out to the side instead of straight up. They were a little bit angled out.
Yeah, and they were massive. It was almost like Hellboy to me. That's what it reminds me of.
They had those pointed horns instead of bat ears.
Yeah.
I liked it. I thought the costume looked good. And Robin's costume, it had a bigger R on the chest, and his cape was darker. I thought it looked a lot like the original, like the first serial.
Yes.
But they made a few differences, but I liked it. As far as the costumes went, I was very pleased with them. I thought this serial, to me, the cast worked better in this one. I thought they had more personality. I don't know how you felt about it.
Well, I liked Lowry as Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked Lewis Wilson as well. I prefer Wilson to Lowry, but there was something about the way that Lowry portrayed Bruce. He just seemed
he did a good job.
To me, he was more debonair and more of a playboy than Lewis was. And in I can't remember, Johnny Duncan. Yeah, Duncan.
He had a lot more character to him.
Yeah,
I thought
he had a lot more character to him. But overall, it's just my opinion. Overall, I preferred the first one.
Really?
Yeah, I did.
The first serial or the first actors?
The first serial. The first serial as a whole. Yeah.
See, I'm kind of opposite.
A little bit of trivia. This is the first superhero sequel film ever.
Cool.
Yeah. I did some digging on that, and it was the first sequel to ever be made for a superhero film. So, but yeah, I cut you off. I'm sorry. Keep going. You're talking about you're the opposite of me as far as like.
Yeah, it's the opposite. I enjoyed this serial much more than the first one. Now, I like the first one. Don't get me wrong. I love both of them, but this one, I think because to me it was more of a comic book villain they were fighting. Yeah. It had a lot more better special effects, more use of miniatures. To me, it was just cooler. It was more like a comic. Yeah. I mean, I liked the first one with the Japanese guy and stuff, but that was more like a James Bond villain, the first one. To me, it was. Yeah. This one was more like a comic book villain. The Wizard, right? The Wizard. Yeah, he was the Wizard. And, he had on the hood and the cloak and that. It was more.
He's basically a reverse Batman. Yeah, because he was a wealthy guy with his own cave.
Right, and that was very interesting. How he was a cripple, but he had that machine that would zap him, and he could stand up, and that was pretty cool.
And the next time you watch it, pay close attention to the backgrounds in the Bat's cave and in the Wizard's cave. It's the exact same cave. Yeah. All they did was change. They took Batman's desk out and they put some science-looking equipment.
It was a much better cave in this one for Batman. Yeah. It was larger. They had, you could see another tunnel or whatever to another cavern. And
Yep.
He had like a lab and he had a filing cabinet. It was better to me. They nailed it better, you know.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. They used the same, but of course back then those cereals were made on a budget, and they had to do that kind of stuff. They had to use the same set more than once.
I wonder if this was a manufactured cave for the set, or did they film in old what's it called, Bronson Canyon, where you see, like Robot Monster was filmed there. Adam West, they would come out of the cave, you know. I wonder if they used that, or if this was a manufactured set.
Well, I know they used. I don't know if they used that specific location, but they used the deserts in California for a lot of the exterior shots. But the cave itself, as far as I know, that was strictly a set. I don't believe that was any. I don't think that was a location shot, I guess you'd say. I just thought it was kind of funny that Batman lives in Gotham City, and he fights in the desert.
Yeah.
But I like that kind of stuff. I mean, that's.
Now, I noticed in the sequel, Alfred was more defined.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you were talking about how he was a bumbling idiot in the first one. They fixed him in this one. He was a lot better. To me, he was.
Yeah.
Lot better, had more of a role. And Commissioner Gordon made his big screen appearance from the comics.
Yeah, it was Captain Arnold in the first one.
Right. So now you got Commissioner Gordon, and played by Lyle Talbot, who was Lex Luthor in the Superman serial, who did a fabulous job.
Yeah.
With the bald head. I thought he made a great Lex Luthor. But as far as Commissioner Gordon, man, he was a great actor. I like Lyle Talbot. And you know what? He kind of resembled Pat Hingle, who plays Commissioner Gordon in the '89 Batman.
Yeah.
They kind of resemble a little bit. I
can kind of see that. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I really enjoy Lyle Talbot. And the bat signal came into play here.
Yeah. It worked during the daytime.
Yeah. But what I don't get is, how does Alfred just know that there's a signal out there? He just walks in the door and checks. Does he do that every 2 or 3 minutes, or all day long? He just knew. So he goes and looks. Oh, let me go get Batman.
Yeah, I know, like with the '89 Batman. Well, no, I don't think it was the '89 Batman. It was Batman Returns, where when the signal would kick on. Yeah, it was the second one, because when the signal would kick on, something was triggered at Wayne Manor, and it would shine a light in Wayne Manor so that Bruce would know. So maybe they had something like that would trigger, but it aimed at Alfred for some reason.
Yeah, like we're talking about. To me, this one had a better comic book style villain.
Yeah. And
the sets were bigger. It looked like they put more money into this one, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, I enjoyed it more, but I did like the first one. But talking about Johnny Duncan, I know I mentioned this to you before, not on one of the shows, but just in talking. That I used to email Johnny Duncan back and forth, and he told me a lot of tidbits about his character Robin, and worked on serial stuff. And then he asked me for my home address, and a couple of weeks later, I got a package from him, and he had like 6 or 7 autographed 8x10s that he sent me from the serial. And I have no idea what I did with them. There's something, they're probably my storage unit. But if I find them, I'm going to show them to you on a different episode here. But
and
they're really cool. What's that?
He passed away, what, in 2016?
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago.
It was recent. It was fairly recent when he passed away.
Yeah. And that's the only serial actor that I have an autograph from. And
he was probably one of the last. He would tell me
stuff about how the Batman costumes, even though they were shooting in black and white, it wasn't black and white costumes. They but it wasn't like the comic book colors either. It was weird. It was like a brown and an orange or a green or something. He said they did material tests to see what combination of colors would stand out and contrast the best.
On black and white.
So one of the photos he sent me was colorized to the exact colors used, so you can kind of get a idea of what they did. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
And Johnny Duncan. Okay, I got one more Johnny Duncan story, and I don't think I ever told you this one. It was years ago. My aunt and uncle were in Branson, Missouri on vacation, and they were waiting in a line for a show to go into a theater, not a movie, but like a live country show or whatever. And they struck up a conversation with the couple in front of them. Well, come to find out, it was Johnny Duncan. And he started telling them about how he played Robin and Batman and stuff. And my cousins were probably 7, 8, 6 and 8 or something, real young. But my uncle said he offered to give them a VHS copy of the serial. And they said no. They didn't want it. And Johnny asked my uncle, he said, how old are these kids? He couldn't believe they didn't want a free copy of Batman with him in it,
Yeah.
So they turned him down, so they didn't get it. But when my uncle was telling me the story, blew my mind. I'm like, Johnny Duncan? I would have taken the tape, and autographed it. But yeah, I wish I would have been there. So met him in person.
That would have been cool. I've never met any of the mainstream Batmen, or Robin. That would have been cool. I did have the chance to meet Burt Ward and Adam West at Wizard World one year, and I didn't take it. I just didn't. I have an interesting story about Adam West, though. I was using the restroom at Wizard World in New Orleans, and whenever I was coming out of the stall, Adam West was going into the stall next to me. And if it wouldn't have been for the 2 massive bodyguards that he had standing outside of the door for him, I wanted to put my hand under the stall and go, holy spare a square, Batman. I seriously doubt he would have liked that, though. I remember the only thing that I really remember about him other than that was he was walking by our table at the convention, and he had people surrounding him so that no one would take his picture. He didn't want his picture taken. But I still would have loved to have met him. I didn't have the funds with me, and there were so many other people that I wanted to meet there. And
I'll tell you, I've met Adam West about 4 times. He got a lot of stuff autographed. I've also met Burt Ward, and I've got a lot of autographs from him. But one of my favorite I collect Batman Adam West stuff. I've got my dining room is my Bat cave. I got everything in my dining room is Adam West Batman, right? But one of my favorite collectibles is a reprint. It's not the original, but poster from the the Batman film that came out in the 60s. Okay, and I've got it signed by Adam, Burt, Frank Gorshin. I met him in Austin, not Austin, one of the border towns over there.
El Paso?
No. I'm trying to think where it was at. Anyway, I met Frank Gorshin. I got Yvonne Craig to sign it. She wasn't in the movie, but she still signed it. See, there's one more person. Can't remember who it was. The Catwoman from was it Lee Merriweather? Yeah, it's really cool. I remember the first time I met Adam was in New Orleans years ago at the Big Easy Comic-Con. And their program book, this artist had a shot of Bourbon Street. You're looking down Bourbon Street. It's like from the balconies, on the buildings. And you're looking down at the street, and the Batmobile's cruising down the street, down Bourbon Street. That was on the front of the program book that year.
That's cool.
But I can't remember if this was the late 90s or early 2000s. I can't remember when it was. But it was a lot of fun. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to show you a trailer called Mystery of the Batman. Now, this is a new Batman serial that came out, a few chapters here and there over the last few years. And it was made by a guy named Ryan Moran from the Dallas, Texas area, okay? So watch this trailer, and when we come back, we'll have Ryan with us to talk about his serial. Be right back.
I didn't do it, Commissioner. Believe me, I didn't do it.
That's 2 partners dead out of the 4 who received death threats.
The acid should make quick work of his remains. Cloaked in the blackness of night, he stalks the city's underworld like a specter. But is he friend or foe? It's the Batman! I'm sorry, the what? No one knows the Bat's true face, or if he even exists.
This fellow they call the Batman puzzles me.
Caught in his wings are the hard-boiled police commissioner, his socialite friend, the junior sleuth, and the Gotham police force. Which one will discover the mystery of the Batman?
Hey, welcome back to Cliffhangers, the serial talk show, and we're here with Ryan Moran from the Dallas area, and he made the serial Mystery of the Batman. How you doing, Ryan?
All right, man. How are you?
Great, man. Thanks for joining us tonight. We want to know all about your serial, and we want to tell people what it is, what inspired you, and how they can see it. So, first of all, let me ask you this, first of all. How did you first discover serials?
I was always a fan of, like, ever since I was a kid, my first exposure to sort of that era was the Universal monster movies. So, like Frankenstein, Dracula, the Wolfman, I was always in love with that. And sort of from there, I kind of spiraled out. I watched the old Warner Brothers gangster movies. And it was just, I love movies from that era. So naturally, you kind of discover the serials. But as far as Batman goes, yeah, it's one of those things. You look up the filmography, people, they always sort of assume, okay, Michael Keaton is the first movie Batman. It's like, well, no, what about Adam West? And people say, yeah, well, Adam West was the original Batman. But it's like, no, if you go back to the 1943, the 1940s, you discover, oh, wow, Columbia did these two awesome serials that I think, unfortunately, by today's standards, they don't get the recognition they deserve.
Right. Yes, serials are kind of like a forgotten film art, you know, it's just, and that's what we do through the Couch Shoe Serial Fest and stuff. We're trying to bring this back to the public eye and not let it die out completely, you know. Let new generations know what serials were, and like, hey, Shazam's cool, but do you know they've already done that, you know? way back in the 40s, you know?
Well, it's funny you say that, because when the Shazam movie was coming out, I had a friend of mine who wasn't really familiar with the character. I made them watch The Adventures of Captain Marvel. And on Blu-ray, because Kino just put out that beautiful 4K restoration, and it was an amazing experience. And they actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought they would. So that was a lot of fun.
Well, Kendall and I were talking last episode that both of us thought that The Adventures of Captain Marvel, that's our favorite serial. It was so well done, well written, well acted.
It's one of the earliest ones.
I'm not just jumping on the bandwagon, but I'd probably have to say Captain Marvel as well.
Yeah, very, very good serial.
That was the one, as far as like when I was showing my fellow filmmakers, my actors, when I was telling them, okay, if you want to get into the mindset of what a movie serial was like back then, I didn't really recommend the Batman serials because I didn't want the actors copying that. But as far as something that was sort of like a little bit more high quality and genuinely entertaining, I thought Captain Marvel held up a little bit more. So I would show them an episode from that. Cool.
So what made you want to make a serial? As opposed to just a normal short film or feature. Why a serial?
The original idea was, it would be fun to go back to Detective Comics 27, because I always loved that darker, more gothic version of Batman, which he's a little bit rougher. He carries a gun. He's not opposed to killing. Yeah. He's much more of an anti-hero. And you read that original story and you can kind of see the seeds that were planted, like in the Tim Burton Batman or Batman the Animated Series. So my first idea was like, oh, it would be fun to adapt that. But if you're adapting it kind of straight, it would be a short film. It would only be about 15 to 20 minutes long. And it's like, okay, it's a comic book. It's in that format. If you're going to make it, why not do it the way they would have done in 1939, since that was sort of the popular format? And if you do it as a short film, a serial just made the most sense. So when I did the first episode, I had no idea I would go back and do continuing chapters. It just ended on a cliffhanger for fun. But thankfully, people seemed to like it. And they said, is there going to be chapter 2? Is there going to be chapter 2? And that's when I sort of rewrote and restructured the rest of the story in a true serial format.
Cool, man.
A question in the in the very first chapter, the opening sequence on the rooftop.
Right.
Was that a nod to 1989's opening? With
yes,
the rooftop? Because that's what it reminded me of.
Oh, thank you. Well, I took that as a compliment because that's probably still my favorite Batman movie. There's a lot of stuff with Batman. When you've watched a lot of the cartoons, you've seen all the movies, read the comics, it sort of becomes ingrained in you. Yeah. So there are things that are intentional nods, but then there's other things that it's like, oh, well, that just happens to be the character.
Yeah.
If you read that first comic in Detective Comics 27, you see Bruce Wayne talking to Commissioner Gordon, and they're sort of talking about, oh, the Batman, this strange guy, he's hanging around, he's popping up everywhere. But when you're making a movie, it's more of a visual language. So it's show, not tell. So why not introduce, like, if you open it, to me, that's a stronger opening. And then you can kind of lead into the later stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, what was the hardest part about making this serial?
Probably the scheduling, because, it's all financed out of pocket. I'm shooting it with my friends and family. So it's just about getting everybody ahead of time and making sure, like, hey, I need 12 people available for the scene, who's available on what date and which one works for everybody.
Did you have a favorite chapter?
Well, when you're doing it like this, traditionally, as you guys know, like a movie serial or a TV show, they shoot the entire season at once. But since we were doing this sort of one chapter at a time, even though we had the story blocked out, we felt like with each one, it's like, okay, the last episode was good. How can we make it even better? What can we improve on? What can we kind of go back and tweak? So, I mean, I love them all. I think they're great. When I go back and watch chapter 1, there's things that I think like, oh, I could have done that differently. I could do it better. But a lot of people love chapter 1. That's their favorite. But I am proud of the last 3 episodes, 4, 5, and 6. That particular story arc was really satisfying for me.
Cool. Okay, out of all the 6 chapters, what was your favorite scene to shoot?
I like the stuff, spoiler alert. So at the end of chapter, chapter 5, we find out that Bruce Wayne is still alive because at the end of chapter 3, we saw Batman get stabbed and pushed off a rooftop. As far as filming goes, shooting chapters 5 and 6 are the most fun because I got to lay in a bed the whole time. So that was pretty comfortable.
So you did a lot of great poster art, lobby cards, stuff like that. Now, did you do these yourself?
I did, yeah. It's just like one of those things, being a completely handmade project. I mean, I would love someone like Drew Struzan. There's a lot of brilliant, amazing, talented artists out there. I can't afford them, but I do like to paint, and that was a lot of fun for me. So yes, I did design, paint, and do all the text.
It looked great, man. I really enjoyed the promo art and all that stuff. It looked fantastic.
Thank you, man. It was fun to pass the time because when you're editing, there's time between that and then uploading it, but you're still kind of in that mindset. So it was just another way for me to express myself within that world between chapters.
What about the costume itself? Did you design it? How did that come about? The look of it?
Well, to me, that original Bob Kane, Bill Finger design was so iconic. Even if you've never read Detective Comics 27, if you have a passing familiarity with the character, you've seen that image of Batman where he has kind of like the Wolverine style mask, the purple gloves. So my goal, I obviously wanted to do something that stuck as close to that as possible, but was still practical. So I drew a couple of designs. There were a couple of young ladies. They call themselves Fairy Godmother Cosplay. They're the one, I bought all the pieces and they physically sewed the cowl and then the logo to the chest and all of that. The utility belt was actually a World War II utility belt with the patches for practical use, which, especially if you're doing this on no budget and you want it to feel kind of real, to me, the pouches were more practical than like the little capsules that he originally wore on his belt. So that's how that came about.
Cool. Let me ask you this. Would you ever make another serial, or is that done? Too much trouble, or is something you'd like to do again?
I love doing it. I love the format. It's just, never say never. I have nothing against it. If someone approached me and they're like, Ryan, here's a budget. We want you to come do this. What do you have in mind? Of course. I mean, there's lots of stuff. But the great thing about Mystery of the Batman is I kind of learned how to structure the action and the cliffhangers. So in this current project I'm working on, which we've rewritten it to be a feature film, you kind of have a better understanding, even though it's not a serial. Okay, this is where the action beats need to be. Okay, this is the dialogue. This is the exposition. The next scene, we have to ramp it up a little bit just to keep up the suspense and the excitement. So I did learn a lot from the serial process.
Very cool. Kendall, you got any questions, man?
Yeah, I have one other question. And I know you said that shooting, laying in a bed was the best thing, but how tough was it? How hard was it, both as an actor and as a director, to have to do that whirlpool scene or hot tub scene for the rap video?
I mean, it was just that was pretty exhausting. But the things you do for your art, even though it was a chore, it was awful. I mean, the women weren't much to look at, but what can you do? No, I mean, that was actually pretty fun. And the way I got people involved, it's like, look, it's for this music video, but it's basically a house party. We're having a good time. So it was just a bunch of us hanging out with the ladies and the camera guys. So that was pretty fun.
So who did you like better, Robert Lowry or Lewis Wilson as Batman from the two original serials?
With no disrespect to Lewis Wilson, which of course he was the original, and that was kind of shocking when I found out. You look at him by today's standards, it's like, oh, he's a middle-aged man, but he was only like 21 years old or 22 when he did that, I believe. So that was kind of shocking. I do like Robert Lowry a lot, just because I've seen him in a lot of other movies from that era. Like he was the love interest in The Mummy's Curse from 1944 with Lon Chaney Jr. He was in The Mark of Zorro with Tyrone Power. So he's just one of those actors I always enjoyed seeing him pop up. And the fact that he got to play Batman was a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed him as Batman more. And I enjoyed the Batman and Robin serial a lot more than the original Batman serial.
I think in that case, it's sort of like, even though there was different talent, involved in front of the camera, I guess Columbia, it was sort of trial by error. They did the first serial. They kind of said like, okay, what works, what doesn't? This is how we can improve on it. So I can definitely understand why the second one might be stronger than the first.
Hey, I'll tell you, the Batman and Robin serial, Robert Lowry, they were funny, man. Batman would crack jokes, so would Robin. There was one scene where this old man was behind a desk and three thugs came in and they were looking for that ray gun. And, Batman and Robin come in, they all fight, and the old man's behind the desk and he's got a pistol, a revolver, and he's just shooting it all over the room, okay? And after Batman and Robin beat up the villains and they get up, and the villains run away, okay? Well, Batman grabs the gun out of the old man's hand, and the old man's like, how many did I get? Or how many did I kill? And Batman says 7. He's got a 6-shooter. Batman says 7. I thought that was hilarious, man.
Yeah.
He's like, no, really, how many did I kill? And Robin says, you killed 3 of the 5. And there was only 3 to start with. And the old man said, where are the bodies? And Robin said, oh, we threw them out the window.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Just had a lot of humor in it. I think I liked it a lot more because of that, too.
I think what was cool back then. Yeah, well, I think what was cool back then is even though these were iconic comic characters during World War II, during that time period, it was still sort of early in the media, so there's a lot more flexibility. Whereas now, if you try to make something a little bit funny or go off the beaten track, the fans will complain. They'll crucify you alive if you try to deviate. So back then, you could have more fun with it, I think.
Yeah. Okay, Kendall and I were talking earlier in this episode. We were talking about that first Batman serial. And I know, Ryan, probably last year I emailed you that picture, that cardboard mask I found that was a promo that the theaters gave out. Yeah, I was showing it to Kendall, and we were talking about, can you imagine being a kid and you're going to the theater and they're giving out these promo masks, and then you see the trailer for the first time, live action Batman that you've been reading the comics for a few years. You know how exciting that would be to a kid? And you probably go home and, put that mask on and a towel for a cape and go outside and play with your friends.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely put myself in that situation. It's like, I believe in the 1960s when the Hammer movies were popular in England, I remember seeing trailers for Dracula, Prince of Darkness, and Plague of the Zombies. And their promo material, you could actually have these cardboard Dracula teeth. And I believe it was like a zombie mask, a cardboard zombie mask. So it was cool that they used to do stuff like that more often.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'd like to see. I would like to see more people doing new serials like you've done. I know there's a couple more out there that are working on serials, and in fact, I myself have been making one. But I wish more people would do them. They're fun, and like the artwork that you did for your Batman. I wish people would do more artwork and promo stuff, you know, like give out like little pins or just anything.
Right.
It would be cool.
Thank you.
Again.
Well, I mean, you know, in a way, the serials are sort of like the grandfather of like modern television. Because you think nowadays, well, like let's say like in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, television was more, it was episodic. There was sort of like you watch Gunsmoke. Oh, this is a standalone episode. Come back next week, it's a different adventure. Whereas now with like the rise of HBO, Netflix, Hulu, serialized storytelling I think it's come back in a pretty big way.
Oh yeah, in cliffhanger endings, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But of course, TV was what killed the serials, you know, the theatrical serials. So you went from serials to series, and everybody stayed home, and people stopped going to the theaters.
Yeah.
That was
right.
sad.
Well, let me ask you, how did you first fall in love with the movie Serial?
Man, back in the late 70s, early 80s, just watching TV with my dad. And Kendall and I talked about a show on PBS called Saturday at the Bijou. And they would show, you know, serial chapters, a cartoon, a newsreel, and a feature film. And it'd come on every Saturday, man. And I would watch it with my dad every Saturday. And I mean, growing up, my dad watched primarily Westerns. But if it wasn't a Western, he was introducing me to Tarzan, the Lone Ranger Western, but Zorro, stuff like that. That's what I grew up on. Doc Savage, remember that movie? We went and saw that. But so we watched the Bijou show, and he introduced me to the serials. And one of the first serials I ever saw was Batman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, on PBS. But then I saw stuff like the Green Hornet and some of the Zorro serials, but loved them.
Yeah, so did you see the 40s Batman before any of the other iterations, or were you already a fan of the character when you saw it?
Only Adam West. You know,
Adam West.
This was back in the late 70s, early 80s, so the 89 Batman didn't come out yet. But I was a huge fan of Adam West. I didn't see him run. I was too young, but in reruns, you know. But yeah, that was the only on-screen Batman I had.
So let me ask you, this is a little bit before my time, but when the 1989 Tim Burton movie came out, do you remember if there was a resurgence of interest in the old serials? Did they re-release them around that time?
Yes, they did. They came out on VHS right around that time. And I snatched them up, man.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I made the mistake of watching them in one sitting. You should never watch a serial in one sitting.
Yeah.
Just watch a chapter or two, and then give it a break, and then come back the next day or next week. But I would watch them. I was so eager to see them again, So I just watched them in one sitting. Was that like 4 hours or something?
Yeah,
right around 4 hours.
Yeah, but yeah, there was a huge resurgence, man.
Really, there was a resurgence in the 80s. Character himself. I mean, because Batman, other than the Adam West series, he was kind of limited to cartoons and the comic books, and comics were starting to slowly die off in the 80s, and then boom, 89 shows up, the Batman movie shows up, and everywhere you looked, there was Batman. I
would collect all that stuff too.
Everywhere.
The toys, the posters, anything they put out, I would get it.
Yeah, and to me, that's still, I think it's a genuinely good movie. But then when you go back and you read about the marketing and sort of the hype and how it almost it revitalized the superhero genre as a sort of a viable, as a film entertainment. Because before then you had the 1978 Superman, which I would probably say is the first modern superhero movie as far as the structure, the tone. It took the material seriously. And it was 11 years before we got the sort of the definitive serious version of Batman.
Yep.
Yeah,
I love that 89 Batman. The only thing, I wouldn't say that I didn't like, but the only thing that kind of bothered me was how stiff his neck was. And, You know, he
Yeah.
couldn't do this.
Yeah.
You know, that was the only thing that kind of bothered me.
Well, Christian Bale was the first.
Didn't have that problem. They could look all over. You know?
Christian Bale was the first modern Batman to be able to turn his head, because in the second film, not in the first one, he still had that rigid cowl, but in the second one, it was more of a helmet type deal, and he could turn his head. And and what bothered me was in Batman Returns how easily he peeled the mask off, and it just like ripped. He just ripped it off whenever he revealed himself to Catwoman and Shrek. That bothered me for some reason.
Well, okay, you know what bothers me about that scene? The eyeline, the eyeshadow. When he takes it off, there's one shot, like as he's about to remove it, you see like the whites of his eyes, whereas in the previous shot, he had the blacked out eye makeup. Yeah. So, I mean, they could have given him the raccoon eyes, but I guess they thought it would be too silly.
Maybe so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you guys this. Out of all the iterations of Batman that we've seen from the Lewis Wilson all the way to the new ones with Ben Affleck, who had your favorite costume out of all of them?
I have my answer, but you can go first if you guys want to say.
Say, DDK, what you got?
My favorite, and y'all probably gonna laugh, Ben Affleck's Batman.
Really?
Yeah.
In BVS, the bulky bat. Of course, I like that Batman altogether because he was just an old, angry, fed up Batman. But I loved that suit. I mean, it made him look larger than life. I'm not talking about the plate armor one. I'm talking about just his, I guess you'd call it his streetwear.
Right.
I love the look of that suit.
It's the Frank Miller suit come to life.
Yeah, and the Christian Bale suit, I liked it, but to me it was almost too armory looking.
Right.
I like the first one, the Batman Begins suit, more than the Dark Knight suit.
Yeah. And then of course the Michael Keaton suit. I mean, I like them all. I like them all for different reasons. But if I had to pick one, it would definitely be Affleck's first suit. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Can I say your bat suit? Because I am digging that cowl, man. It's like if I ever do Chapter 7, that's the cowl I'm gonna have to.
You can get it at Party City, I think, for $20.
Oh wow, okay, that's.
I thought you stole it from the Noid.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Okay, with the ears or floppy, you're starting to look like Space Ghost a little bit because I'm just seeing like the face and the shape of it. So, honestly, if I have to pick my favorite bat suit, I'd have to go with 89. I love the return suit. I love sort of the Art Deco armor plating. But to me, the 89 suit, it looks like if you took the basic sort of Neil Adams silhouette, but then you added like the Tim Burton kind of flourishes. It's just a beautiful design. I love the logo with the extra bat wings. I love the shape, the cowl. It's very, it's subtle and aggressive at the same time, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I can see that definitely.
Yeah, but like you said, a lot of the later bat suits, they got a little bit too busy with the armor and the plating. And look, I know Batman's a human being. I get it. It's cool to have those alternate suits for special occasions. But if I'm going to pick sort of a definitive Batman, I want something a little bit more classic, a little bit more traditional.
Yeah. I would love to see one with purple gloves.
Oh, yeah.
Because he originally had purple gloves. And I think that might have been an ink issue in the beginning. I read somewhere that there was an ink issue with the gloves. I can't remember what it was. But, yeah. And Lego actually released some DC mini heroes. And I've seen
those, yeah.
The Detective Comics 27, they have it with him. And he's got the flared Wolverine-looking suit and purple hands. And I got that thing. They were in blind bags. And thank God I only had to buy 3 of them to get it.
Okay. Man, you lucked out.
Yeah.
But I was going to say you might be right about it being like a coloring misprint because I noticed in a lot of the reprint of Detective Comics 27, they just give him blue gloves. So I don't know like which one is more accurate, but for some reason the purple also sticks out in my mind. Yeah.
I like that purple for some reason. It's weird how screw-ups like that impress me, I guess you could say.
Well, you know what they say about Spider-Man? In the first appearance, Spider-Man, he's not red and blue. He's supposed to be red and black. But later on, they saw the blue highlighting and they said, oh, he's supposed to be blue. So that's why we have the Spider-Man we all know and love today, is because of misunderstanding at the printers.
So
well,
who's your
y'all
favorite,
got
Patrick?
anything else to talk about Batman or about the serials?
I mean, I could
I'll-
talk all night, man.
Yeah.
I did want to mention, Ryan, I know you said you were a fan of the Universal Monsters.
Yeah.
Lambert Hillier, the director of the first Batman serial,
Right.
also directed Dracula's Daughter.
Dracula's Daughter, that's right, yeah.
Yep.
Do you know, okay, this is, since you reminded me, if you look at the end of Mystery of the Batman Chapter 6, the final chapter, there's a little post-credit scene where we see Bruce Wayne in the cemetery with Julie Madison. She hands him a flyer for Michael Monk, who, you know, if we did a Chapter 7, that's sort of the storyline we would go towards. But if you look at the address for Michael Monk's church, it says 1943 Hilliard Road. So we did want to pay homage to Lambert Hillier and give that little Easter egg. So
Nice.
but yeah, because of not only Batman, but like you said, there's the Dracula's Daughter connection. The Mad Monk in the comics is a vampire, so it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense to put that there.
Very cool. Well, man, we're running out of time, so we're going to go ahead and cut this off. But
Yeah.
Ryan, man, we appreciate you being on the show. It's been a
Yeah,
pleasure. If somebody wants to watch your serials, how can they find them?
All right, if you guys want to check out Mystery of the Batman, you can go to youtube.com/BigJohnCreations, or just Google Mystery of the Batman 1939. You can check us out at facebook.com/Mystery of the Batman, and we have all the episodes uploaded there as well. So,
All right,
yeah,
great.
just check us out, man. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. If you ever want me on again, just tell me ahead of time, and I'll brush up on my serial knowledge if you ever want to talk anything else. So,
Yeah, we'll definitely have you back. Thanks again, man.
all right, thanks. You have a good night.
All right.
All right, you have a good one. Bye.